The next speech is also about what François just said. It's about adapted physical activity by Léo Barassin. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you for giving me the floor and giving me the possibility to talk about adapted physical activity. I'm Léo Barassin. I'm a teacher in adapted physical activity. So what is it? First, because, well, it's a university graduate but a degree, and we specialize in adapted physical activity according to the different disability or deficiencies. So how do we do to have physical activity every day? So the first part are the recommendations. You all love that, of course. For the WHO, what are they telling us? 150 to 200 minutes of physical activity, moderated physical activity every week, and 75 to 150 high-intensity physical activity every week. So what the ideal solution would be to do it twice a week, and it's, of course, in agreement with what François said. Why do we have these recommendations? Of course, it's to avoid deconditioning. What is it? It can happen to all of us. So you decrease your muscular capacity, and so you do less physical activity, and you feel more fatigue. It's more difficult to start a new physical activity, and so it decreases your physical activity. And so it's a cycle, of course. And at the end of the day, you are in a decondition status condition. So less leisure, less physical activity, and it's not great, of course. Our recommendation for people in PPS is to do muscular strengthening, but it has to be adapted to your capacities. Of course, you cannot do squats if you can't walk, but you also have to take into account the asymmetrical aspect, because, of course, the expectations are different. And on cardiovascular exercises, it's different too. We might have recommendation for the intermittent intensive training too, and it should be done 2 or 3 times a week, and 20 to 40 minutes a week. So the effects, it will decrease the energetic requirement of walking, for example. So if you could walk for 10 meters before, you could walk for 20 now for the same amount of energy. And this means that the energy you will use every day for your daily tasks will decrease. What we see also is a decrease in symptoms and an increase on the functional capacities declared, reported at least by the people with polio sequelae when they have regular physical activity. But we do not have real data on the muscular effect. So you will tell me, of course, we know this, but how do we do this? That's a real question. And I think that's for 50% of you, and the other 50% will just tell me, okay, thank you for the information, but I can't do it. So how do I do this? That's where we are trying to find real interesting information. So let's think first about the obstacles. I will not talk about the energy requirements, but rather I will talk about your energy used. So first you have the energy used at rest. So yeah, there are 3 phases in your day. It's quite easy. For example, the physical activity. You go and buy bread. Physical activity also now professionally. For example, if you work, you will use energy. And then physical activity that is there for your leisures, to do something you like, to go on a walk, to maybe go on a little adventure on your wheelchair. This is physical activity, okay? So physical activity, it has to be accessible, easy. You need the adapted equipment, and you need to have the capacities to do so. Because, for example, if I say I will do a 50K tomorrow, I won't do it. It's not working. You need to maximize pleasure. And I think this is the most important thing. pleasure is the most important aspect, because if you do physical activities without any pleasure, you won't continue. So if you want to understand the different obstacles, well, one of our interns did a thesis on what are the main obstacles to physical activities for poliomyelitis patients. So he had a questionnaire on the physical activities and on the obstacles to physical activity, because our objective is to give the possibility to many people to have a regular physical activity. But that's not the case. So these were the first results, the preliminary results. Many people do not have any physical activity, or at least not much. So we have a very sedentary population. So it was a study on 121 patients. So it's quite enough on a statistical point of view. And they keep working on it, and they keep collecting data. And so it will be published quite soon. It's interesting for us on the way we manage our patients. Now, to give you an example, I will talk about what I'm doing on an everyday basis. I work in a cluster for health in Garches. So we have 3 missions. We assess the physical capacities, cardiovascular strength, and so on. Then we advise. Through the assessment, we can advise on a specific physical activity, a specific technique, for example, or a specific adapted equipment. And then we support. We need to accompany the patients. That's something that's from my experience. I can give the patient all the recommendations they need. I can give them the equipment, but they might not do it. Maybe because they do not have enough information, because they will not be compliant. So we have always a colleague that is accompanying the patient. And here's the link between the patient and the structure. Because, of course, if the issue is from the patient, then this person can help. And if the issue is coming from the structure, from the center, well, this person can also help explaining how to well treat these patients. So there's no reasons left for avoiding physical activity. So 3 missions. These were for physical activities, for health, or for pleasure. So what does it mean? It means how to optimize your daily life. How can you do that? You can have strengthening for your muscles, but your cardiovascular work, but also just habits. For example, you can have fitness exercises that are adapted, and so that's for health. You want to have a good health, you want to be fit, you don't have much pleasure, but you can add some good habits into your daily life. And then for pleasure, for the leisure. Now you can have physical activity just for the sake of it, because you want to have fun. For example, you can play tennis. You can have tennis for disabled people, for example. We just adapted the rules. It's easy. Basketball also. You can do basketball standing or in a wheelchair. And you can also do e-sports, meaning that you can use video games to make some energetic expenses. Because if you've seen someone playing hard video games, they are sweating. So it works too. So you can adapt the rules, adapt the materials, the equipment. Maybe not in polio, but in other in other diseases, you can have surgery that can help with physical activity. And of course, you can accompany, support the people towards this physical activity. So for this, we have a great team. We have doctors, we have one specialist, and that's me. We have a physiotherapist and also a social worker, and this is very important because, let's be honest, practicing sport costs a lot. It's expensive, so you need social workers to help with that. So to answer these different questions, we have an assessment that we've implemented, so it's really your journey. We do an assessment, multidisciplinary assessment, not only with the doctor, but also with the physiotherapist, myself, and everybody. 20 minutes of discussion, because we have to know you. And after that, it's only sport. What do you want to do? We change. I'm no longer a doctor, and now I'm there to be a sport teacher, a sport trainer. So what do you want to do? What kind of assessment we can do? And after that, we can think of a possible equipment, medical equipment, because sometimes it's needed. And after that, we go towards, that's what I call the go towards. It means that you have to go and meet the structure, the center, where you will have this physical activity. And I have 3 examples of people that have followed this journey. People with polio, of course, because I thought it was more interesting to you. Mr. P, first. PPS with a lower left limb deficiency, with physical activity that he does just for pleasure. But his issue is that he feels fatigue on the right leg, and also instability on the left knee. What he wants to do is to make his walks more efficient, to improve his daily life. So we did an assessment. We prepared a plan. So during the assessment, we assessed his physical capacity. We do a cardiovascular exercise, the normal. So, for example, you have to walk for 6 minutes. And for strength, we ask you to stand up and then sit down, and so on. And also obstacle training, because if you go on walks outside, you will never have just a flat ground, right? But these assessments are very interesting, and we have instruments to help with that. For example, on the walking test, we have connected soles that allow us to visualize the asymmetry on the ground connection. So, for example, you can see that you have 60% of the weight on the left leg or the right leg, and so on. It's very interesting. So, for example, if I have to recommend some strengthening, or, for example, if I want to give this person some exercises to do for muscular strengthening, I have to adapt it on the left leg, because I want this leg to be a bit stronger. Right? Now, in practice, how does it look like? Well, main objective, well, I went and walked with this person. We have a nice park outside the hospital. He used the soles, the connected soles, to really understand what was happening, and we wanted this to be a safe exercise, no risks of falls and anything. And second objective was to put the person in a real situation with the exercises to strengthen muscular strength. Sorry. And so how can he do it, but also how can this be a pleasure? So we didn't really need to accompany the move towards physical activity, because this was someone who already was walking a lot. So we will meet again in a year from now to do the same assessment and see if there's an improvement on the asymmetry, on the strength, and so on. Because this is primary prevention for us, but also we want to improve the physical capacities of this person. And of course, we're still available. If he wants to contact us, we can have conversations. Now, another example. And it's a different journey, a journey oriented towards pleasure and leisure. So someone with polio, with physical activities, but he's always slipping, he feels unstable, he does push-ups, and it's shoulder fatigue. It's not ideal at all. So we've seen it. We've done the assessment. We've done the cardiovascular assessment, and also the movement abilities. For example, we asked them to do the spider test. It's a movement that resembles tennis with a tennis racket. And we also we decided to try to assess why he needed to move and how he needed to move every time. So we have a pressure plate that we use, and it's great for us because we understand where he puts pressure when he moves around. And this way we can understand where the center of pressure is. If it's unstable, it's not great. If it's stable, then he is stable, and then it's great. So we can assess this value. It's a quantifier to know if what we offer to him is adapted or not. So it's great to do it outside, inside the hospital, but what happens in reality? That's also important to assess. So we now know how he will use the pressure. But now, on the court, on the tennis court, what happens? Well, the same assessment is done. We try to assess the same values with the same pressure plate, but now in practice. And what is done? We've realized that we needed to stabilize him on the pelvis level. So we offered him two pelvic blocks, just to avoid him moving around in the seat, in the wheelchair. And we saw him last week, and he said, "It's perfect, it's great, but I'm still moving from the back to back and forth." Sorry. And the objective, of course, is for him to be able to practice tennis with a lot of pleasure. Just it has to be a leisure, really. Last example, Madame B. This is an example a bit different. So it's a need of a social support, because it might be a real obstacle for many of our patients. She's 42 years old, polio with PPS, sorry, and she wants to learn how to swim. So she's already going to the aquatic center, but the issue is that she has two jobs. It's very difficult for her to make ends meet at the end of the month, and what I want for her is to be able to swim, and that's a real motivation. She wants to be able to swim, to do it regularly. So no point in starting a walk project. Okay, we know she wants to swim. It's a pleasure for her, so we will focus on this. So we started with the assessment, the physical capacities assessment, as we always do. No real indication on the physical capacities, because we know that we are still working on the swimming aspect, so we will have to compare next time. But in practice, we used something from the national education system, which is called Know How to Swim, and we adapted it to polio patients. It's something that we are doing right now. I'm working on it at the moment and tomorrow, and so it's. So we've used a known project just to know if she's in a safe space when she's swimming. And so now we had two issues. We had to find first a place where she could go and where a colleague of ours could go to accompany her, but also to be the link between the center, the hospital center, and the place she swims at. Of course, we need to be able to come close to the pool with a wheelchair, but also we are looking for associations or non-profit organizations that might be willing to help her learn how to swim. But if I'm talking about the tennis wheelchair, it was 7,000 euros. So equipment might be very expensive. And if we talk about orthoses, they can be even more expensive. They are not always reimbursed. So really, social integration is so important in this matter. So to conclude, there's another possibility that we do offer. It's an app called Je m'entraîne, meaning I'm training. It might be adapted to some, maybe not to others. Some people have told us that they didn't know anything about strengthening, muscular strengthening. So that's just what we've realized after the first physical examinations. And a question was raised. How do we offer an app for disabled people to be able to have a physical activity? So we thought about this. We reflected on it for a long time. We decided to adapt the exercises, but also the person can decide if an exercise is adapted or not. Can I stand up? Can I use my left leg or right leg? And then the algorithm in the app does remove a lot of exercises according to this questionnaire. And then every time you progress, well, the app is adapting. There's a question after the exercise and asking you, were you able to do it or not? And if you say no, then the difficulty decreases. And it changes all the time until the exercise is really suitable for you. So it's very interesting if you want to do strengthening, muscular strengthening for you, but you don't know what kind of exercises you can really practice. But let's not forget the aspect of pleasure, really. So we do want to adapt this app and have, for example, dance, Zumba, or other aspects. Because at the moment it's really analysis and physical strengthening, because that was the first point. But we want to expand it, really. Voilà. That's what we wanted to talk about. Thank you for your attention. Of course, do not hesitate to move and to have physical activity every day. Thank you very much, Léo, and we will take a round of questions. Thank you. On one of the first slides, you said that the heart rate should be below 75%. It's 70%. So that's more or less threshold number one. And I'm quite surprised by this number. Why 70%? Of course, it depends on what you are trying to do. Maybe if you're trying to lose weight or trying to gain resistance. But why 70%? My question is, why 70% of your maximum heart rate? And my second question is, isn't it too low? Of course, it depends on the formula you use to calculate it, because 220 minus the age is not much. I'm often way above 70%. And I even go beyond my maximal, my theoretical maximum heart rate. What I've given you is the recommendation. But what we do at the center is that we put someone on a bicycle and we assess the maximum heart rate. If you want to work on endurance and resistance, you should do something that is not too high intensity. It allows you to improve your cardiovascular capacity. But we do not use the basic formula. We do tests. Yes. But I asked the same question this morning. What do you think about HIIT training? I've read a lot about this, and this might be more beneficial and better results in lesser time, with very intensive work and then resting periods. I don't know. What do you think about this? I've been discussing this with Sylvain earlier today. These recommendations should really be oriented to rehabilitation centers. Because if you're talking about leisure, pleasure, if you're playing if you're playing tennis, for example, we will use high-intensive interval training, of course, because tennis is more like it. But it has really to be adapted to each case. There's something else that can be done to assess your maximum heart rate. When you have to do an effort exercise, a cardiovascular examination at the doctors, you can simply ask your doctor, to give you your maximum heart rate. I just wanted to thank you. Thank also François for creating ISPC, because until the creation of the center, there was nothing. And I want to thank you for presenting such a great work. This gives hope to our patients to really have physical activities in adapted structures. So I really want to congratulate you for creating such a thing for the patients, but also congratulations to you for your involvement in this, because it was something that was really missing. I thank Rania, but it's something that was really a team effort. With the SOFMA, we've presented a project to the ministry on the possibility to have a full reimbursement on orthosis, on sport, in the next project for social security. They haven't accepted it, of course, but you know that the president has announced that there will be a reimbursement for sport. But, and it's something that has been mentioned by Léo, we are really trying to work on sport, on wheelchair, and on orthosis, because it has to be reimbursed, and so this is something we are advocating for. But I can tell you, it's not a battle that is already won, but we keep working on it. But we have to move on now. Thank you, Léo. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you, Léo.